Hello everyone, Republic Jim here, back from a bit of a sabbatical just because I've been too busy working and haven't felt like making videos. But today I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, which is earthquakes, and specifically the Cascadia Subduction Zone, or the one that would lead to the so-called big one in the Northwest. There's been a fair amount of earthquake activity lately, and both on YouTube and other forums. Every time I see people discussing it, the topic always comes up about the big one, and people have these theories about how things are increasing and we're due any time, and it's just going to cut loose without warning. I see comments from people about how, oh, I feel it, or I had a dream about it, and it's so real, I know it's going to happen. But, I kind of like to base it a little more on science when I'm discussing earthquakes, not necessarily like mainstream science, because I tend to follow Dutch sense and some of his earthquake progression theories as far as forecasting quakes. So, the seismologist wouldn't accept what I tend to believe, but that's all right. I've had a pretty decent track record at forecasting earthquake locations and approximate times and such, but I've kind of worked up some of my own theories as far as what to look for, precursors for the CSV or CSZ event. And I'll just say up front, this is just entirely my theory. I can't really provide any solid science to back it up, but this is what I would be looking for rather than just an earthquake out of the blue. I think there are signs that will warn us that one is incoming. And also, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to keep saying all through this, like, in my opinion, or I think this will happen. That would get old really quickly. I'm just going to say this is what's going to happen, and understand that's just in my theory of how it would play out. And again, I don't have any hard evidence to back that up, but I'm just going to state it that way, and we'll leave it at that just to make it easier. So basically, I expect that what would initially kick off the events leading up to it would be a big, deep earthquake in the West Pacific, something around a 6 to a 7 range. And by deep, I'm talking 500 to 600 kilometers deep. We've had a few of those lately. They're not extremely rare. They're relatively uncommon. Just had one recently around the Philippines area, and could be there, could be around Fiji or possibly southern Japan. So anytime a large deep quake hits somewhere in the West Pacific, I'm always kind of keeping an eye on it and watching to see what plays out over the next couple of weeks. After that, I'm looking for a pretty good increase in activity in both the North and the South Pacific, like in the Aleutian Island chains and down around Central and South America, basically heading across from the West Pacific to the eastern side of the plate. And just a dramatic, well, not too dramatic, but a sizable increase in activity there to indicate that pressure is transferring. That potentially could lead up to something bigger. I don't think it would be just a huge increase or anything really noticeable to somebody that wasn't paying attention. I think USGS would see that and think, well, that's just standard, like fives, that sort of thing. For the Aleutians and for South America, that's not uncommon, but it would still be enough to kind of get my attention a little bit more and be keeping an eye on it. But the big deep earthquake and then the increase that follows is sort of expected. It's happened before, and it doesn't necessarily at that point indicate that anything bigger is coming. So the thing that I would watch for at that point, what would really be a major red flag to me, and I've never really seen anybody else talk about this, but I would be looking for some very small quakes along all of the volcanoes in the Northwest, especially in Oregon. We have a fair amount of quake activity, just like 1s and 2s and such on a regular basis at St. Helens and Mount Rainier. That's not too uncommon. It's a little rarer to see it at Mount Hood. And I would be watching all the way from like Crater Lake on a Newberry Crater, all the ones in the Cascades in Oregon, up to St. Helens. If I start seeing a bunch of quakes, small quakes or tremor swarms or whatever at most of those locations, then, like I said, that's a major red flag. At that point, it shows huge compression along the Cascadia Subduction Zone that would be putting stress on the weak point at the volcanoes, and something's about to give at that point. So if I see that happen, all those small quakes at the volcanoes, especially in Oregon, that after the previous 2 events, then that to me is a warning that the big one is imminent. That's what I'm watching for. I'm not basing it on dreams or just a gut feeling or anything. Obviously I could be wrong on this, but that's my theory. None of us have ever been around to witness a Cascadia rupture, so it's entirely speculative, but I think that my theory there makes a lot of sense, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. If I see that play out in my lifetime, I'm going to be getting in touch with family and friends that live near the coast and trying to raise the alarm and get them to evacuate immediately and get away from the coast before it hits, because that would be really devastating when it does. And it is just a matter of time. Whether that happens in our lifetime or not, I don't know, but like I said, keep an eye out for those signs. That's my opinion, and I'd love to hear any thoughts on the matter from people in the comment section. Thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you later. This has been Republic Jim.